in raising, I experienced things like being told to put my hair up because you're more likely to raise, or being told to tone it down in terms of my femininity, things that I had been like I had heard at Google.
I want to just start by diving into your time at Google and YouTube. You have had so much experience doing really epic things at these very big tech companies that we all know of. So yeah, why don't you just dive into what that experience was like and how that led you to start building Herd?
Yeah. So for me, right after college, I wasn't necessarily sure which direction I wanted to go. Studied public relations and advertising. I was always fascinated by tech. And I knew that I needed to optimize for earning potential. I paid for college on my own. And so I was naturally looking at companies that could allow me to live not with my parents once I graduated. Yeah. Google was a company, obviously it's iconic. Everyone knows it. I was like, that would be a dream come true. And so I really looked at any role that I could for new grads. I looked at the product marketing program. I looked at the product management program. And I ended up finding a sales associate program within their large customer sales group, and thankfully made it through the process. Started about a month after I graduated working with some of Google's largest advertising clients, like think Amazon level. Wow. Big.
And you were one of the youngest employees at Google at the time?
Yeah.
On your team?
Yeah, I was 21.
Wow.
I was the youngest person in all of large customer sales at Google at the time.
That's wild.
Yeah, it was definitely crazy and a great experience. I got to work with people that were 20 to 30 years in their career. It also was eye-opening for me on what I didn't want, to be honest, because I felt really energized and really excited and really ready to just like bulldoze through. And I recognized that at a large company, like there's only so much speed that you can pick up. So after about 2 years is when I switched over to YouTube. Really loved my experience.
And that was a transition within the company.
Yeah. So I can talk a little bit about that transition because it's
definitely I'd be curious.
Non-traditional. So I went from working in sales, which it's sales and strategy at Google when you're working with clients that large, to being a global content strategist for YouTube Shorts, helping right at the beginning of YouTube Shorts launch. And that pivot on
That's
paper,
wild.
it seems pretty crazy. And it definitely isn't the normal path. I recognized about 1.5 years into sales that I didn't want to continue on that path, but I did not want to leave the walls of Google at that point. I felt like I was still learning a lot from the company as a whole. And so I decided that I was going to need to figure out ways outside of work to get the skills that I wanted to get. And so I found TikTok right before the pandemic, which was very lucky timing before there was a ton of people on it. And I just started talking about how to build your brand as a creator, how to think about content creation from a more technical perspective, like what's going to help it actually get pushed out to more people. How do you think about a really enticing first 3 seconds?
Right. And you were like thinking about a lot of these things in your day job. So you kind of could bring that, what you learned and bring it to like your audience.
Totally.
And build your personal brand with what you learned at work.
Totally. And I think people are scared sometimes to like talk about the things that they do in work or their expertise outside of the walls of their company. But I think there's definitely a way to do it. And from my perspective, it was like, I'm going to put on this creator hat and I'm going to teach you as a creator. I'm teaching brands in my 9 to 5. So there was enough of a difference there. And just started taking on consulting clients during the weekend during COVID. I was spending like 4 hours on the weekend just...
No way. You were doing a full-time job, content creator, and you basically were running your own business.
Yeah, looking back, don't think that was fully sustainable, but I loved it. I was so passionate about it, and I was getting to meet all these amazing creators who, at the end of the day, a lot of them were just, it was more in their head. It was more of a mental block of like not believing that they could do it, less of the technical skill to be able to actually like hit their goals, which was an interesting theme. You talk to people with 300 followers and 3 million followers, and a lot of them have the same insecurities.
That is wild because I don't have that many followers on TikTok right now. And I'm like, oh, like the dream is like 50K. And like, but people with 50K are probably thinking the same thing I'm thinking for just someone bigger than them.
Oh yeah. That's the trap of social media with followers in a lot of ways is there's always more. There's infinite possibilities when it comes to followers. And so everyone's always looking for the next milestone. Even at the millions mark, they're looking for that next thing. So got really good at coaching creators, really loved working with creators, loved content strategy. and found that there was a role at YouTube that was opening up. I didn't have the on paper experience. I got lucky in the sense that the hiring manager for that role was like, I really love that.
I don't believe in luck. You manifested that, and you definitely had the skills and experience to do it, because you're literally doing it on the weekends.
Totally.
And running your own business on all your knowledge.
No, you're 100% right. I fully believe in manifestation. I think it's one of those situations where the opportunity was right, in the sense that the manager was really open to non-traditional ways of looking at work experience. And
you were strong enough to be like, I deserve that. Yep. I'm going to actually try to get it.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. There's some crazy stat, I don't know it off the top of my head, of like men basically apply to roles that they are not at all qualified for. And so whenever I'm looking at a job description, I'm like, I'm going to pretend that I'm my brother, right? I'm going to pretend that I'm him, or just like generally like think like a man in that sense, and say, okay, I meet 6 of the 10 requirements. Like, that's not nothing. I'm going to apply and let them say no to me.
Well, you shouldn't actually take jobs that you're fully qualified for. You should take jobs actually you're underqualified for, because the whole point of doing the job is that you learn and grow in that role. And men just get that, and for some reason we just don't. And I want more young women to understand that.
Totally. If I would have looked on paper at all of the roles that I've applied for, like none of them I had all of the things, and I just would like to say that I think I do a really good job in all of the roles that I've had. So totally agree with that mindset.
Best way to learn is to trial by fire.
Totally.
Just like me with the podcast. I'm like, never done a podcast before. Best way to learn is just actually do it.
And you're doing great.
Thank you.
Okay. So from YouTube, was there for like 8 months. I started at YouTube while I was also starting to think about taking that next step. I think like being a creator, consulting with creators, I was getting that taste test of entrepreneurship. And so thought that there was something for me outside of the walls of Google and YouTube. And my best friend and I, during the pandemic, were on our phones all the time trying to find connection, trying to stay in the know on our loved ones. And we were leaving a platform feeling more lonely than we did when we logged on. Yeah. Like, why are we going to this place for connection? And then feeling more lonely. So that's what led us down the path of Herd.
Wow. That is actually really inspiring to hear, because, or not inspiring, I guess. It's really interesting to hear, because I feel very similarly, where I spend a lot of time on social media, and even though I could get like 50,000 views on a video and get all these comments, I'm not intimately connecting with these people. I'm not leaving and thinking, I have all these new friends now. I'm thinking, oh wow, there's so many people in the world that I haven't met yet. Or I'm looking at someone else's video that we got more views. I'm like, now I'm feeling like they're better than me, or feeling like insecure. And I think what's really cool about the product that you built is it tackled a lot of these problems. So tell us more about what your vision for it was, and how Herd did things different than the classic Instagram and TikToks of the world.
Yeah. Our vision was pretty simple. It was taking the perspective of, we now know what's toxic about social media. There's been 5+ years of research on what it's doing to teen girls in particular, and their mental health and body image, and just all of that was available to us. So we took in a lot of that research, tried to understand themes of like, there are specific product designs like a pull to refresh that we know to be inherently bad for us, just as addictive as a slot machine. So we wrote down all of those features. We're like, these are things we're not going to do. We're going to take a different approach, and just started to build our philosophy on a metrics-free zone. What it really came down to is you need to protect the user's well-being and protect their privacy. Those are two things that right now on most social platforms are at odds, because if you're selling user data, you're going to optimize, and you're selling ads, you're optimizing for time spent on platform. That's directly at odds with whatever you're doing for the user's well-being. Yeah. So just took that approach. My co-founder and I both spent like 4 months basically in my apartment during COVID planning out what we wanted the product to look like before we found our CTO. So we had a pretty clear vision on the product. We really took our time. We found in our research that like all of the major social platforms have been designed and founded by men, and also really quickly. Like, they were snapshot ideas, and then they just immediately started coding. And I think a lot of the repercussions is because they didn't think through like the
less intentional, right? It's like, let's try all these random things. Let's code MVPs, put it out in the world, and then basically 1 or 2 end up picking up steam, go viral, and then from there they go and like build and grow these billion-dollar companies, and like there's no point where they're like reflecting on like what
Yep.
they're doing.
100%.
Yeah.
And so we are like, we have all this knowledge, we have all this perspective, let's do it differently. And we wanted to grow the platform alongside our user base. One of the hardest things about growing a consumer social platform is you need to get volume of users on in order for it to be a viable business. We didn't want an ads model. We wanted to explore subscription down the line. And so we knew we like needed to get that core group of users that really believed in us. So we started talking about our experience designing and what we wanted the product to be and our vision for it on TikTok almost about like 6 months into our process. And then we didn't launch the product fully until 4 months later. So we had 4 months where we were talking to users every single day. We had a wait list of 50,000 folks before we even launched. And those 4 months are some of the best 4 months of my life. Like it was such a fun time to just be in this like ideation, chatting with people, hearing their stories about social media and just getting that like excitement from other people outside of just Allie, my co-founder, and I.
No, it's actually interesting that you said that you spend those few months actually connecting with your users, looking for feedback, seeing what they wanted to build before actually going and build it. I think a lot of founders make the mistake of building product and having this idea in their head, going out and building something and then launching it, and then people don't really resonate or use it, and they're like, wait, why? This is like a great idea, but it's because they're not actually talking to their users. And it was almost like a blessing in disguise that you guys were in this in-between moment of, I have an idea, but I don't know who our CTO or who the person is going to build it yet. So in the process of finding it, you kind of gave yourself this golden opportunity to actually do the due diligence of talking to your users and really deeply understanding like what they're looking for, which speaks to your growth, right? I know you grew to 60,000 users in a year, which is totally wild, unheard of. So that is actually insane. I want to hear about what that journey was like, and especially what it was like as a non-technical female founder, which is very much breaking the stereotype of what a founder is in Silicon Valley as like a male software engineer.
Totally. Yeah, so growth for us, we really took an organic approach. Like all of our users, we didn't pay anything for. All of our marketing was organic. We wanted to be as transparent and as vulnerable as possible. And our growth really stemmed from, we had that initial wait list, and then those people became brand advocates for us. They were telling all of their friends in real life to download the app. One of the benefits of our product design is like you were going on there to meet new people. So you could post what you felt comfortable with without worrying about, in order to enjoy this platform, I have to have 5 friends that I know in real life. We found people were posting things that they would never post on Instagram, whether that was like concert photos or animal photos or things that they're passionate about that felt more casual. And so we leaned into those user stories to really like tell that organically and start getting more people who kind of fit that mold onto the platform. But that first year was a lot of just talking with people about what we were building. We went to New York and we like passed out little business cards with a QR code to people. Like we did a ton of scrappy things as well outside.
Did that work well?
It actually did.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really great. We got to connect with people. We were just going up to people that looked young and we were like, hey, how do you feel about this? Or we saw people like on their phones. We're like, did you know?
Yeah.
There's a new social platform.
Well, also great founder market fit, right? Because you're walking around and your target user is someone who's going to look at you and be like, oh, she's kind of like me, or she's like the older version of who I want to be. And so you're naturally attracting the right type of user for your product, which is like young women who are looking for places to be safe and to express themselves, which is like your product's the perfect solution.
Yep. Totally. So yeah, it was really great to be able to use the skills that I had gained in sales and in content strategy, both on like what our marketing was and how we were telling those stories and going out to people. I will say there's always going to be a stigma, I think, when you're the CEO of a company and you're non-technical and it is a tech startup. And so I had to get really comfortable with what my superpowers were. And I was doing a lot of the product design, like I was doing all of our UI, UX.
Wow.
I figured that out. I learned as I went. It's not perfect by any means, but it was enough. So I think figure out if you are someone who's non-technical, what those things that you can pick up are and like fill in the gaps for.
Yeah, like how can you add value?
And then really lean into the superpowers. Honestly, I think there's even more that I could have done to be like, these are the things that I do really well and I'm going to double down on them. It's really easy as a founder to be like, I need to do everything and pick up all of the slack. And I think we could have been more effective if I would have narrowed in a little bit more, if I'm being fully candid.
So what do you mean? What do you mean exactly by narrowing down? What would you have done differently?
Yeah, I was really lucky. My co-founder and I, super good friends, and a lot of times we'd want to work in collaboration on things like marketing and content. And I think that did us a disservice sometimes for like just effectiveness and efficiency. So making sure that I'm going to own this channel and you're going to own this channel end to end, I think could have helped us in just feeling like we weren't doing everything. And when you're focused on something, you're just able to think deeper about it and have new ideas versus the misnomer of like, I can do it all, because you can't realistically. You can do a lot, but you can't do everything at the full capacity at the same time.
Yeah, which is why it's not even like beneficial to be good at everything, because even if you are good at everything, which no one is, you can't even do it all. But I think the other thing that's specific about you guys is like you're building a consumer social app. So the number one thing that you guys should actually do well is connecting with your audiences on social media platforms, because you're trying to get them to join your app, right? And the fact that you guys both kind of shared that skill means that you could double down on it, and that kind of was your competitive advantage because you had this authentic connection with your community, I think.
Yeah, agreed. That was something that when we were pitching investors or outside folks, we talked a lot about that, like the value of someone who really understands the customer base. That's something that you then go and build products from the perspective of. I
mean, that's the most important thing as a founder, is you like actually understand the user deeply. Yeah. So I know you guys raised, and you guys also were part of Techstars. Yeah. So what was it like raising as two female founders? And tell us about your process to apply and get into Techstars.
I am always transparent about my experience raising, and that it was not pleasant. I think there are things I could have done differently to put my guardrails up a little bit more. I went in really optimistic, reading the stats and being like, I'm going to be fine. Like, we have all of these users, we have all of this interest. I have this, experience in big tech. I know the user. We have a great CTO, a great team. And that wasn't the reality. And I, at first, was really getting defeated after every no that I got. And so there's some momentum building when it comes to raising. And what I needed to realize is I first needed to go to people that were mentors to me in my life, that really knew me and knew the passion that I had and understood my work ethic and expertise. And those were our first checks in, were people that understood me, really like were investing in me as a founder.
I mean, just in general, when you're a founder, right, like you have this vision for the future, and you have to get people around this like a crazy idea of this future reality that you believe in. Who are the best people to actually believe this crazy reality? People who have like deep understanding and spent a lot of time with you and can take a bet on you, right? And that this person is someone I believe in and can execute that crazy vision, and that has to come from your inner circle first.
Totally. And I didn't have family or friends like in my real life to be able to do that. And so my old work mentors and their friends and family actually became like a really good network for us. We were really lucky to have people that advocated for us in that sense. But I do think that I should have put less focus on people that didn't know me and convincing them to believe in me. I think now, after raising and after going through that process, I'm much less of a people pleaser. Going into those calls, I was like, I'm going to convince these people to believe in me. They're going to love me. And it's just not possible.
Yeah.
And they could love you and just hate the idea, and that's okay.
But I actually resonate with that, because I feel sometimes embarrassed, or I just feel like I don't want to ask the people that I'm closest to for their money, because I don't want to like fear of failure or like disappointment. But the truth is, if you can't even believe in yourself and believe in the fact that you're going to make the money, like you shouldn't even be a founder, right? Yep. So it's actually counterintuitive that you should be going to your friends and family first, because you need to believe in yourself to go do that hard thing. And why wouldn't you want to make all the people you love like rich and successful from like, your company, right? So it's so hard to do, because I so struggle with this as well, and I get it. But I think we often forget that's actually like the highest leverage that we have.
It is. And the first few checks in it's always going to be the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
My perspective on, I was very nervous also. I'm going to be honest, like
Mm-hmm.
asking people, even mentors, to invest. That wasn't the initial conversation. It was like, can I get your advice on this? And they wanted to open that door, and I'm really grateful for them for that. But my perspective on this is like, yeah, I wholeheartedly believed that this is going to be, you know, the next big thing. I have this vision, but also I believe in myself enough to know that if Herd isn't that thing, like I know that I am going to be successful in my life, and whatever it is that I do and whatever
Yes.
leads to that path,
Yes.
I will make sure that they get tenfold of what they brought to the table.
For sure. And like you remember your first believers, like you never forget that.
Yeah.
And failure is not necessarily something that we should feel sad or bad about. Failure is really just exponential growth and learning for you. And you can use that as a stepping stone to go find whatever that thing is that's going to like make it for you.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you guys are not building Herd anymore. And I know that was a pretty difficult decision for you. So walk us through what that decision was. 60,000 users is not a small number to disappoint. So I can only imagine how difficult that was for you.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all curious about it.
Yes. So we had just finished Techstars, which we can always go back to and talk about if we want. But we had just finished Techstars, and we were looking at our runway.
Mm-hmm.
And Techstars really was a lifeline for us. We had been applying for a really long time. We got in at the tail end of the time we had before we needed to raise again, outside of just that friends and family round. And we had a lot of life things happen all at the same time of Techstars ending. So my co-founder was going through some health-related things that really made us both, like, I think, reconsider like the stress and pressure that we were putting on ourselves.
Yeah.
A family member of mine was also going through some pretty significant health scares. And that, combined with the fact that my co-founder and I did not come from generational wealth, and we were digging ourselves into a bit of a hole to make this work as founders.
Yeah.
And we had been raising for almost a year and hadn't found the right investor to take us to that next step. All of those things combined were hitting at the same time.
Yeah.
And so my perspective was, we need to get ourselves in a position where money isn't a concern anymore. Like, we need to go back and get full-time jobs, because we can't create anything from this stress level that we have. We need to get in a place where there's health insurance. That isn't what we're currently able to afford as founders.
So true.
And yeah, and we just need to relieve stress and get out of the hole. We had been building for 2 years at that point, full time for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all we thought about. It's what we lived and breathed. But I think to a point where it was like we were in the hole so hard that we needed to pull ourselves up and like look around and really make sure that we were on the right path. And so we made the really tough decision as following Techstars that we were going to go back, find jobs, reset, and figure out what the next step was for ourselves, for our investors, and for our users.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I mean, we celebrate the founders who made it, and that is obviously total credit to them for sticking through it, but we never talk about where they truly came from, and we can't pretend that the founder who came from a family that's going to support them, give them like food and housing if they don't take a salary for a few years, does have an advantage and has a lot more tolerance for some of these costs, specifically like financial costs. Mm-hmm. So it's so real that, you know, we can talk about this, and you're also open and willing to be vulnerable about your story. Mm-hmm. Like, I think you're the first person in your family to graduate college. Is that correct?
First woman in my family. My older brother is the first.
Yeah. Is that, I mean, that's a crazy story in itself that I want to hear. Like, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Growing up, college was a non-negotiable, even though my mom didn't go to college. My dad went significantly later in life to get his degree. And no women in my family had ever gone to college and gotten a degree. So my mom was adamant about the importance of it, but also was like, we can't afford to send you to college. So you're going to need to figure out how to do that, but you have to do it.
Wow, that's insane pressure.
Insane pressure. very lovingly, though. I will say it was very loving. And I'm really happy that I had that pressure on me. But throughout my time at college, like, stability was the number one thing. I was like, I want a job after college where I have a stable income and I don't have to stress about money and I can pay off my student loans and I'm going to be good. So I had this one-track mind. Like, entrepreneurship honestly was not on my radar until I had some breathing room working at a place like YouTube.
Yeah.
So entrepreneurship is not something that runs in my family nor my co-founder's family. It was an entirely new world for us. And that also comes with a set of learning curves. I was exposed to a lot of that after we joined Techstars. I was in the room with people that had generations of entrepreneurs and college grads. And you just recognize that that is a different starting point. And you have to be okay with the fact that you don't have that perspective, and you have to be open to being vulnerable about that so you can learn, because I think there can be a lot of shame in not coming from a place where you see everyone that's successful coming from.
Yeah.
But if you're quiet about it and if you're closed off about that shame, you're never going to be able to get the support and the help that you need to get you up to speed and up on the same starting point as everyone else.
Totally. I mean, that's wild. Like, basically most of the stories that I hear of anyone from, like, I got an internship to, like, I got my first investor, it comes from a referral. It comes from an inner circle connection. That is very real. I grew up in the Bay Area, so I barely know stories outside of that, which is wild to me, that you got these top jobs in tech, you went to college, you supported yourself, and then you literally built this insane company and clearly got, like, recognition from incredible places like Techstars, that's not, like, casual of an achievement. That in itself is a crazy thing. So yeah, I want to know your secret. Like, how do you get that first connection, that first referral, whatever it is? Maybe it's to getting your job at Google, or it is getting your first investor and doing the thing that is very difficult to do.
A lot of it is mindset, like believing that you deserve to be in the room or that you deserve the things that other people have. I will say sometimes you have to take a risk in order to put yourself in a position that you wouldn't otherwise have access to. The college I went to, it's Chapman University in Orange County, a lot of folks that go to that school do come from families with significant amounts of money or parents who work at these crazy places. To me, when I was in high school, I knew I was going to have to take out student loans in order to go to any college, let alone a private institution. Thankfully, I had some scholarships, but I knew that that was a risk that I was taking, with the potential upside of I'm going to meet a lot of really interesting people. I'm going to be a part of a really good program, and those connections are going to be worth something. And then once I got in, I made the most of that time. It would be silly for me to not say I worked my butt off in college. I had multiple internships. I was trying to make as many connections as possible, and I did have the clear vision of what I wanted going into that. And it's okay if you don't have that, but I think recognizing that you're going to have to put in probably more work than some of the people that have those connections, but it will pay off tenfold.
Yeah, I mean, just networking is kind of a, like, throw random darts and see what sticks type of a process. So actually, I think focus is what's critical in your success here, because if you're throwing random darts out, if you kind of at least throw them in kind of a similar area because you know what you're looking for, that definitely must have helped.
Yeah. Oh, and asking for help. I really struggled in high school and first few years of college asking people for what I needed, but no one knows what you want unless you tell them. And people are okay with you telling them. And the people that aren't okay with it, like, that's fine. Just move on to the next one. There's going to be someone. And for me, what that looked like was in my college sorority, I was like, hey, I need a job. And I'm looking at LinkedIn, Google, Facebook, all these big tech companies. Does anyone know anyone that works there?
Wow.
At any of these places? I sent out a mass message and I got one girl who barely knew me that was like, I think someone that I know that graduated 3 years ago maybe works at LinkedIn. Like, I can try to connect you.
Wow.
And I took that gracious connection, and that is the person that they worked at LinkedIn. They're like, there's nothing at LinkedIn, but I have a friend at Google. I hear they're launching this program. You should go apply for that.
That's so true. It takes one person to introduce you to another person to introduce you to the right person.
Yes.
And you don't know what that magical path is going to be unless you try a lot of different options. And honestly, kudos for you for asking, because I think I get a lot of feedback from like the Gen Z community of like, oh, like, how do I ask for help, or how do I ask for a referral? I'm like, you literally just ask.
Yep.
You just literally say, can I get a referral?
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't want to refer you, they'll just say no. And probably because it's kind of they don't want to feel like the bad person, they're probably going to try on the spot to think of a way to help you. And then in that situation, you're still getting help. You're still getting them to put you on the right direction and getting them to do something that maybe you didn't even know you needed at the time.
Totally. I think people are willing to open up their doors, especially if they're going to say no on something and they like you. They're going to say, oh, but I can do X, Y, or Z. Something I learned when I was raising with Herd was to count your no's as a win. Like, the yes is always out there. There is someone that will give you a yes.
Yes.
There's millions of people.
Yeah.
But you have to have the tenacity to be able to get to that yes. And so count every single no as a win, as a closer step towards that yes. And I think you can do that with the job hunt as well. Like, my job at Google that I got right after college, I applied to over 200 jobs, and I only had final round interviews at 2 places, one of them being Google.
Yeah, that's so real. I mean, every single no is one step closer to yes. You have to get through a certain number of no's to land that yes. I talk about this a lot as well, where I'm like, everyone has a number, right? The number of no's they need to get to a yes. Mm-hmm. The only difference between you and the person who achieved the thing was they were willing to continue to wake up every single day and know that they just haven't reached their number yet. If you wake up and be like, I've only got a no's, I'm not getting my yes, like, I'm never going to get to my number, that's the difference between you getting it or not getting it. And just be patient about waiting for your turn. It happens as long as you just like are consistent.
Yes. And give yourself some time and space to be upset about the no's that you've received. A lot of people say just power through, don't even think about it, just move on to the next one. When we were raising, like, would spend 10 minutes every week being like, damn, I'm really sad about all these no's that I got. I was really excited about that. And I'm going to give myself a little bit of time to like be sad and be a human. And then I'm going to move on from there. Yeah. And I'm going to just continue on the track. But you don't need to be a robot. You just need to understand that your yes is out there and you have to go find it.
Yeah. Balance is so key.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now that you're working at Discord full time, curious what that transition is like from going to like founder, which is so crazy and wild. Actually, no, founder and full-time content creator. Like, you're doing basically 2 things, to being at Discord. So I'm curious what that transition was like. And I'm also curious about the future of Herd. Is that something you think you're going to pick back up, you know, in a future part of your life?
Yeah. I'll answer the Herd question first before I jump into what I'm doing now. For me, I think the perspective that I have now, a year after leaving for Discord, is a very different perspective than I had when I was building. I've had a lot more experience. I've seen changes happen in the ecosystem. I think like the evolution of Be Real, which was a very similar product, like how we were thinking about the future and where that's gone, has really had me thinking and questioning if consumer social is the best way to solve the problem and serve the user base that I really care about. Do I think Herd as a, like the mission of Herd is dead? No. I just, at this point, am being very thoughtful with what the next path to bring that mission to life and to solve that problem looks like. So I don't think Herd will ever be dead until it works. That's my perspective. Yeah. But I'm at this point right now where I'm giving myself the space and time to just observe and wait until, honestly, I'm just feel like I'm recovering from the burnout that was foundership. And so I'm giving myself the space and time to be in a position mentally, emotionally, to feel like I've learned a lot from the position that I'm currently in before I go and commit to anything. And I think Herd could look like something completely out of tech. It could be something tech related. It could be something that I'm doing part-time. It could be something that I'm doing full-time. I'm like open to all of the options, and I'm not putting pressure on myself to like have that answer today.
Yeah. I mean, once a founder, always a founder.
Always a founder.
I really believe that.
I agree. And I always say Herd on paper, right, it's technically a failure if you're not going to continue on with the product that you built. But I don't look at it that way at all. Yeah. I think I did for quite a few months, if I'm being honest. But now I'm like, I'm a former founder, and former founder usually then turns back into founder. You never lose that mindset. And it's okay to be open about your experience as a founder and that failure and what that taught you. And more people need to be open about what that is like.
There are more failed founders than
yeah.
successful founders. So you're talking to a majority audience here.
Yes, but going out and doing that thing is more than most people can say.
Yes.
And that's a skill set that no one can ever take away from me, an experience that no one can ever take away from me. So yeah, I think there's stuff on the horizon for Herd, but I don't have a clear vision for what that looks like just yet. And I'm okay with that. And I think that there's many times that I wouldn't have been okay with giving that answer. And speaking of like the founder energy and the founder mindset, that really does never leaves. And I've brought a lot of that into my role now. I'm really fortunate to be at a place that really embraces the fact that I have this perspective and that I am a founder at heart.
Yeah.
And that's been really cool to see. If I could give any advice to people that are deciding to take a step away from their startup, is to find a company that gives you the stability that you're looking for, whether that's like you need more financial freedom or you need more like work-life balance, whatever that is, find that thing and then make sure that they're okay with the fact that you're still going to be a founder. In a lot of senses, you're going to take ownership over your work. Yeah. You're going to come to the table with new ideas. You're going to push people and make sure that they're thinking about things critically. You're going to see things from a holistic perspective. And you have to find the right company that's okay with that. Because some places are a little bit too big where they want you to be super narrow-minded. And I'm really thankful that I'm at a place that is really open to me being really open.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. And how does Discord like enable that for you?
I think for me, it's seeing me as a full person. Mm-hmm. I'm really lucky that they recognize my background. They know that I'm a creator. They know that I come from this Herd experience, and they pull me into those conversations. And also when I ask to be involved in conversations that maybe people in my role wouldn't be asked to be a part of, they're open to it. So I think a lot of it comes from just like valuing people as full people and all the skills that they bring to the table. It's more than just what you're looking for on paper. Like the person in that role can bring so much more, and they're willing to hear me out.
Yeah, no, and I think it's also what's amazing is that you're still also creating and sharing your knowledge with the world. Mm-hmm. How do you balance that with a full-time job, and how has the things that you talk about shifted?
Yeah. When I was working at YouTube, I was really having to not make content on TikTok because they were so similar, like what I was talking about on TikTok versus what I was talking about for YouTube. So I've had that experience before where I had to like completely shift my social following to make sure that I wasn't risking anything work-wise. Now my job is very different than what I talk about. I think that they both play off of each other in terms of how much I'm able to create is when I'm in more not downtime, but less like go mode with work and vice versa. Understanding that I am a human that needs to do more than just work has been a good realization for me. Like I need to have a plate that is full of work things and things that I love and people that I love and free time. And so that sometimes means I'm not making videos for a week. That sometimes means that I'm making like 5 videos because I'm really excited about it in that day. And I just have to have the perspective of like, it all nets out in the end, and that's okay. As long as I'm making steps when I feel excited about making those steps, that's the best thing that I can do.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I feel like TikTok and you using that platform to like share your thoughts and have a voice on there has really enabled a lot of your growth in your career and given you all these opportunities. What are some like tips or advice you have for other professional women who want to use social media as a platform to get their message out there and impact like other young women? How do they get started? And like it's intimidating. Yeah.
The beginning stages are always the hardest. Like getting yourself going is always going to be most difficult. I think about building a following in the same way that I think about building a product, which I don't know if that's normal, but think about who you're trying to talk to. Like, who is your ideal user? Who's your ideal audience member? Is it younger you? Is it one version of you, like you who loves to do ballet, for example? Like there are different types of people that you can speak to. So get really clear on like who you're passionate about talking with or talking to or teaching. And then figure out what content feels really natural for you to make. If you're at odds with the content, like the format or the style, or how long it takes you potentially to make something, you're never going to get in the rhythm of making content. True. And I think it's really easy to look externally and say, like, what's working for this person, this person, this person, I'm going to do that. In reality, it's like, okay, what's going to be energizing for me? What's going to be realistic for my schedule? And how do I start working towards that in small ways every single day? Like, if I'm really committed to growing a following, I'm going to spend 10 minutes, 20 minutes a day. I don't need to do everything, but I'm going to take a step in the right direction. And honestly, a lot of my pieces of advice for creators when they're getting started is like, post it and get off the platform. Like, go on a walk, go do something else. It's really easy to be like, I post this video and I'm going to scroll and I'm going to see how many people liked it, and no one's liking it. Oh my gosh, should I have posted that? Like, or someone did comment and like, I don't like what they commented. And it's easy to get in your head. And then the next time that you post it, you're going to be in
and you bring that energy of like, oh, this didn't work out, I'm not good enough, into the next video you make.
Yep.
So maybe just spend no time on thinking about how good you are, because then you can actually show up confident and energetic, and obviously people want to watch videos about that.
Yes. And I've met hundreds of creators. They are just people. Like, the creators with the biggest following, they are just as much of a human as you are. Yeah. They have the same problems, but the difference between them and someone who doesn't go after it is they just take the steps and they don't look back. I
reached out to you because I was like, oh my God, this girl, she's so cool. She has this great big following. She has this massive audience. It's cool. She's been a founder. She's worked at the coolest companies. I was like, she's not going to respond to me, obviously, but like, I'm going to shoot my shot because like, I think she's, and then you literally responded like, oh yeah, let's grab coffee. Like, and I was like, I met you in person. I was like, okay, well, I'm still a little starstruck by you a little bit, but I'm like, at least now I don't feel like nervous, or like I can have this normal conversation. Like, you're just a normal person, like just like all of us. And totally. I ever since I started this podcast too, I've been meeting like just spectacular women who I'm just awestruck by, and it's making me realize that, oh, like anyone can actually have a voice and have unique perspective that is interesting to like a lot of people. And it's really just about being confident in yourself and showing up every day, and then doing the thing that works for you, because that is how you're going to be energetic about it. Yep. If you try to copy other people, that is draining, and it's so hard to do a draining thing every day and then be good at it, like too much.
Yeah. Getting off your phone, like stop looking at what everyone else is doing. Whenever you look at a content creator that like blows up, it's not from doing the trends or doing what everyone else is doing. They have their own little thing, whether it's like talking about something in particular, the format or the way that they film their content, and then people start to mimic that. But you want to come to the table, and there's literally no one else that is you. So come to the table that in a way that feels authentic to you, and that's how you actually propel your career as a creator. It's not from doing what everyone else is doing.
Totally. Yeah. No, I totally agree. What is like, or who is your user today, right? You said that you look at creating as like a product and you want to target user with a message. And I know for you that has changed multiple times in your life. Curious about what it has been and how it's changed today for you.
Yeah. In past, I think my audience was really like content creators, people that I could give like specific education to about the thing that they were making. With my experience with Herd and where I'm at in my life now, really my ideal user is a young woman starting in her career in her 9-to-5 who is questioning, is this it? Is this all that there is? I have so many dreams and so many passions, but I like my job maybe. I like my 9-to-5, but I don't know how to be a human outside of just this one thing that I do, even though I have all of these other passions. So I want to make content that's helpful for people figuring out how do they explore all the sides of who they are, how do they go after their dreams in their 9-to-5 and make the most of that, but also start to go after things outside of that make them really excited and let both of those things live in harmony.
What's your best advice for that person?
Best advice for that person is really to think about why you're stopping yourself from having an identity outside of work. Yeah. Like take the time to think about it. There was a time when I was at Google where I was getting a lot of external messaging that I needed to dim my light, be less feminine in order to be successful. And it's crazy to say now. There were some things that were said to me that are not okay about the fact that I should maybe wear less makeup or do certain things. And that's, there are toxic people at every place and you can't let those people dim your light. But a lot of the advice that I tell people is like, whether you realize it or not, that messaging is around you as a woman in the workplace. Like there is a lot of external noise around who you need to be and the fact that you need to fit into one box that's really digestible for other people and comfortable for other people. And so try to break some of those things down and figure out what are those things that you've always like dreamt of as a kid. Like what would make 14-year-old you really excited? For me in the pandemic, I used to love roller skating. It's like so silly, but I used to love it when I was younger and kind of lost that like childhood passion because I was like, I'm not going to go out and like make videos about roller skating or like go do that now that I'm like a serious business professional. And that's made me a better person. Now I have roller skates. I go roller skating very often. I used to make videos about it when I was at home a lot. So yeah, I think just being okay with owning who you are comes from some work to recognize where maybe the uncomfortability in doing that is coming from, and then just finding those things that start to get you feeling comfortable with showing the other sides. Like it starts with roller skating, ends with Sports Illustrated. That's how it happens for me.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm glad we're moving gears there. And speaking of having multiple identities and that being okay and celebrated, also congrats on your Sports Illustrated Rookie of 2023.
Yes. Thank you.
My God. So insanely cool. Yeah. Tell us more about what that process was like from dreaming about it, applying to it, getting it. I mean, you've broken stereotypes for all women in the tech industry. Like how many badass career women who started a company are like, also I'm a model. Yeah, I want to hear all about it.
Yeah. A lot of my love for Sports Illustrated came from when I was younger. My mom, sister, and I used to love the magazine, just iconic, like look at all of the photos, think about how amazing the magazine was, everywhere that they were going, etc. So I'd always been a fan of the brand. There was something called Swim Search, where it's like an open casting. And I had seen Camille Kostick, who I really look up to, had gone through it. And I felt very seen by her. She wasn't, 5'11" and a size 0. And she was just this beauty and a real body, and just represented, I think, a lot of people out there who didn't see themselves in the modeling industry growing up. So I had seen that. And I had always been like, that would be so cool. Like, that would be amazing. But I did not have the belief that that was possible for me. And I didn't have the, like, driving force until I was full-time on Herd. And in raising, I experienced things like being told to put my hair up because you're more likely to raise, or being told to tone it down in terms of my femininity, things that I had been like, I had heard at Google. And I was hearing again, and I was being told that I needed to fit in a box in order to be a potential a founder that could be invested in.
Yep.
And I was sick of it. Like I am who I am. Like I am allowed to be smart and be sexy, and I am allowed to have passions outside of Herd. Yes, Herd is like a huge passion of mine, but I am allowed to have other sides of me.
Yeah. And having other sides makes you more relatable.
Yes. It makes me a better founder.
Yes.
All around. More able to serve users, and also just more fulfilled as a human and a better visionary for a team.
Totally.
And I was sick of being told these things, and I was like, what would be pretty sweet is if I just gave the middle finger to all of these people telling me that I can't be this and that.
Heck yeah.
And go out and apply. And the worst that they can say is no, and I'm going to put myself out there. And that was a really great decision, and it led to such an amazing experience. But honestly, if it weren't for me trying to just show people that you can be both of these things, like, it would have never probably actually gone after it.
Wow. So you did it to prove your point that you were like making, and you almost like half believed it, and in order to fully believe it, you just had to go do it. Yeah.
And I was like, I want other people to see this. Like, I want the person that I was looking for when I was at Google being like, I want to be a creator and I want to be taken seriously in my job. Mm-hmm. Like at the time, like even though that was only a few years ago, like those two things didn't really exist together. Like I want to be that
especially
person
for women.
Especially for women.
Yeah.
Especially for women.
Yeah. Well, this is like, I mean, you're so young. You've done like 5 careers already and totally killed it. If you could go back in time and tell your younger self some advice, what would you tell her? To
enjoy herself a little more. Mm-hmm. I feel like especially in college and my first few years out of college, I almost became a hardened shell of myself because I felt like I needed to be a different person to be taken seriously. And I took things too seriously, where I wasn't really enjoying my life all that much. I wasn't having fun. I wasn't exploring passions or hobbies outside of work. And I didn't have great work-life balance. And I lost a lot of my identity as a result. And so I feel younger now than I did at 19. And I wish I could have gone back and told myself in college, like, hey, you don't need the 5th job. Like, maybe 4 is good. And you can go enjoy yourself. Or right when you're starting your career, like, it's okay to not be perfect and to not take everything so seriously and to allow yourself to have some fun.
Yeah. That's great advice. Honestly, I kind of need that advice now a little bit. Awesome. So where can we find you?
Yeah. Across all social, my Instagram is at Mady Dewey. LinkedIn and TikTok are Madison with an E, Madisen, Dewey. And those are my 3 main places that I'm at. So that's where I'll be.
Perfect. We'll find you there.